Are you a pro wrestling fan? Then odds are at some point in your life, you were a backyard wrestler. In this new series, I'm going to take you through how we came from this to this. It's a long story, covering nearly 2 decades. But if you're a nostalgic person missing the backyard days of yesteryear and a simpler time of the 90s and early 2000s, this is the story for you. This is Backyard Wrestling Cinema. Welcome to Backyard Wrestling Cinema Season 2, Episode 15. Our last episode was Repercussion, our second ever pay-per-view. I kept the world title against TJ Money, Mr. Benjamins walked out as the United States champion, and Rico DMF successfully defended the TV title. This episode will actually feature 4 different episodes, and the reason why will be made perfectly clear at the very end. First up was Rico DMF defending the TV title against TLD. Now, TLD won the title even though he was tremendously popular in the backstage area. I felt like his loss to Ali, who was a one-timer and was only there for one show, and him not complaining about it, he earned this title. And believe me when I tell you, I got a lot of flack for it. The High Rollers, featuring Mr. Benjamins and TJ Money, with T. Benjamins fresh off winning the United States title, and TJ Money failing to win the world title, took on the BWL Refugees, which were just 3 guys who happened to be there that day. We called them the BWL Refugees because the BWL was the group that came in to invade B4W, and they were the leftovers who didn't sign a contract with B4W. The truth was they were only there for the one time, and we didn't have a lot of faith in them showing up more than once. It was a 2-on-3 handicap match with High Rollers down to 2 and the BWL Refugees with 3. The High Rollers got the easy win in this one.
1, 2, 3, and 420 gets the victory for the High Rollers.
Cobain and Tommy Thunder formed an alliance to take on myself as Denver Street and my partner, The Beast.
Bending him in half. Oh my God. What?
I was the current world champion, The Beast was the current hardcore champion. And if you guessed that Tommy Thunder would turn on his partner and once again align himself with me,
Oh my God.
you got it right. And that's where that episode ended. Our next episode starts off with us actually practicing some of our moves. And I know a lot of people have given me flack and said, there's no way you guys would practice or rehearse beforehand because a lot of what we do doesn't look very polished. But this is actual proof that we did practice before the matches. And truth be told, we didn't record a lot because tapes were so expensive. And, most of us were not making more than $6 an hour. And those tapes, the little VHS-C tapes, were like $20 each. So we weren't filming every single thing we could because all that footage was precious, and it wasn't like you could just throw it on a hard drive and it would just be there forever. You had to keep this physical media.
It's alright. Just keep going.
First on this episode was Cobain versus Tommy Thunder. We're 1 week past where Tommy Thunder just turned on Cobain after they were tag partners. I came out and threw powder in Cobain's eyes, which allowed Tommy Thunder to get the victory.
Oh! Lightning bolt. 1, 2, 3.
We did an angle where Mumbles was in the trunk and I had kidnapped him, and that was kind of to explain where he had been the last couple shows. We made it like we didn't want him going after the Beast's Hardcore Championship. I successfully defended the World Championship against Rico DMF. After help from the Beast. The High Rollers would take on Cobain, who didn't have a partner. Eventually, Mumbles came out, to everybody's surprise, with nobody quite sure how he escaped. After some help from Rico, Cobain and Mumbles got the victory. And that's where that show would end. Our next show started off with Slug versus Cobain, which saw Cobain get the victory. The Beast and TLD competed in a title versus title match, the Beast being the hardcore champion, TLD being the TV champion. The Beast won and was now a double champion.
He nails it. That's 1, 2, 3. and your winner.
Benjamin's defended his United States title against Mumbles, and Mr. Benjamin's got the victory in that one. Tommy Thunder took on Rico DMF, and after some help from myself, Tommy Thunder scored the victory. The rematch from Repercussion, TJ Money versus Denver Street, was a back and forth match, but it wasn't as good as our Repercussion match.
The cash money. Oh my God. Nailing him out of the ring. One, two, one, two, three, and your champion, TJ Money.
In the end, TJ finally became the B4W champion and was even more over than prior to Repercussion because he didn't win back then. He did this Undertaker pin, which I just remember thinking was just so corny. Like, everybody already thinks we're pretending to be wrestlers, so why are we looking like this rip-off WWF thing? I really hate rip-off gimmicks and stuff like that. It's especially main eventers, people who are supposed to be main eventers, it just came off as just corny to me. And that's where that show ended. The first match on our fourth and final show on this episode saw Slug versus Rico versus Cobain. Rico would get the win. This led to Rico and Cobain forming a team, and this was only done because Rico had really been pushing to be a tag team partner with Cobain. It's something he always wanted to do. Mumbles and TLD had a chain match, and this was the same chain that we used to hold up the belts for the unification match between the BWL and the B4W championships. And that very same chain we would discover in that backyard almost 20 years later during the pandemic, when we went back there right before that house was sold.
Still here? Oh my God! Wow!
The finish saw a double pin with no clear winner, and there was a big pull apart between both men. I came out as the owner and made the announcement that at the next pay-per-view, Mumbles and TLD would compete for the hardcore title.
For the pay-per-view, it'll be you and you versus the team for the hardcore.
Owner, commissioner. And they go down with Mac and cheese. Oh my God, folks. Anything can happen here. Oh, lightning bolt, free sweeper, and that's it, folks.
We did a three-way match with Tim the Enforcer, The Creep, and Spike, and most of these guys wouldn't be back, and those that were wouldn't stick around for a long time. Mac and Cheese, myself, and Tommy Thunder took on Mr. Benjamin's in a 2-on-1 handicap match, and as you can imagine, we got the victory. TJ Money successfully defended his newly won world championship against the Leprechaun, one of his real-life best friends. This was a one-time appearance for him. TJ Money did the same thing that he had done the week before, where he was imitating Hulk Hogan during the match, which was really starting to annoy a lot of us, specifically me. I just really have always hated the playing wrestler thing. Next up, there was a tag match involving TJ Money and Rico DMF taking on Mr. Benjamin's and Mumbles. Mumbles ended up showing his butt during the match, and it was clear and Rico walked out at some point and never came back.
Audio edit. Print, cut, I'm out. Okay?
Benjamin's back in!
So we had to scrap this whole match, which was the main event of the show, and we decided to scrap this entire episode. So across these 4 episodes, we had seen a new world champion. The Beast was now a double champion. There was feuds that were started that were building towards our next pay-per-view Aftermath, except none of this ever aired. We got rid of these episodes. It's like they never happened. We put the world title back on me. We threw up the hardcore and the television titles, and there was no champion. None of this was good enough for us. We just didn't like it. It wasn't going anywhere. It was starting to become a show that we didn't recognize. Now, for a backyard show and being 16 or 17 years old at the time, those standards are pretty ridiculous. I know that looking back now, but we just couldn't put our name to it. We weren't proud enough to put our logo on the show and put it out there. So we just got rid of these shows. And I didn't know these shows still existed until about 3 years ago. Rico happened to be going through some of his old stuff and found these tapes. Otherwise, they would have been gone forever. Now, these aren't the last episodes that we would end up removing, and we would take a giant hiatus over a huge fight, a real life fight that would take place. And we're getting to all that. We'll see you next time right here on Backyard Wrestling Cinema.
Wonder! Nailed it! That could be all. 1, 2, 3!
He might have actually. We don't know where the slug is. Oh, there you go. Colors like and here we go move. 1, 2, 3. Oh, Bedford Street, he's crazy.